Today we're diving deep into one of the most sought after garden colors, blue. I'll be covering blue flowering annuals, perennials, and shrubs available here at Garden Crossings. And I'll also show you how to design with blue like a pro. Plus, we're going to talk about why blue and purple are often interchanged when we're talking about flower colors in the plant world. For more gardening information, tips, plant reviews, and see what's going on behind the scenes here at Garden Crossings, be sure to subscribe to make sure you catch our latest videos. Hi, I'm Heidi, and today we're talking blue flowers. I know everybody loves a great blue flower in their garden, right? And a lot of times when we're talking blue, it's often kind of misunderstood. People are talking about blue and you're like, they're not talking about blue, they're talking about purple. And sometimes it is true because a lot of times blue and purple are kind of interchangeable words when we are looking at plants in the garden. So we're going to start off by looking at some of these great, fantastic blue annuals. So annuals, that's the plant that's going to give you that non-stop color from planting time until the first frost. They're also perfect for containers. You can plant them in your garden beds. They make excellent borders. And they're nice to fill in those gaps. If you have gaps in your garden that you're just looking for a nice splash of color, that's where annuals find their place in the garden. So the first one we're going to look at, it's actually a calibrachoa, and we're going to look at a few different calibrachoa that fit that blue category. The first, though, is the bumblebee blue calibrachoa. This is a trailing annual that produces an abundance of blue or purpley blue blooms, and they have a beautiful star-like pattern in the center of each of the flower. They're great for hanging baskets or mixed planters or containers. Typically, though, we don't recommend planting calibrachoa in the ground. Sometimes the ground can be just a little bit too wet for them. So we've got the bumblebee blue. Also, another great one is the Super Bells Blue Moon Punch. Blue Moon Punch features a nice dark center, and that flower, it fades out to a lighter bluish purple as you get to the outer edges of the flower. And also Super Bells Double Blue. That's a beautiful rosebud looking bloom, nicely doubled with a lot of petals in it for a nice, really full look. And it's a beautiful flower. If you're looking to mix in with some of your favorite pinks and yellows, I feel like these blues and purples really pop when planting with those colors. With Super Bells, we recommend using them as a spiller in containers, something that's going to just trail over your baskets and your containers. Pair them with silver foliage. That's a really cool look. Kind of gives a nice modern look and feel. Also, too, plant these blues with yellows. That, too, it has a lot of nice bold contrast and really pops. They like to be planted in full sun to part sun gardens. We do recommend watering them regularly, but as mentioned, you don't want to keep them so that their roots are too wet because they don't like that. And we do recommend that you are fertilizing them at least once a week to keep them looking beautiful all summer long. Another great blue annual is the whirlwind blue fanflower. Scaevola is another name for that. They're known for their fan-shaped blooms. They kind of fan out. They're a little smaller, but there's a lot of them. It's very heat tolerant, and it perfumes beautifully in windy, sunny spots. There's also a new one available, new Scaevola, and that is called the Stardiva series. It's more of a mounding type habit, Stardiva Blue. It gets about 8 inches tall by about 14 inches wide. So if you're looking for just a nice little fan flower to border your gardens, this would be the perfect selection. So the whirlwind blue, that's going to have more of a trailing habit. It's going to trail over your baskets and containers, or if you plant them in the ground, it'll trail over retaining walls and such, whereas the Stardivas are going to have more of a mounding type habit. They both attract the bees and the butterflies, and they are very drought tolerant. And if you have a windy area in your garden that tends to dry out a little bit, these do handle that wind and that drought as well. This is a fun shade to part shade plant. It's the Endless Illumination Broalia, and it's a fantastic choice for those spaces in your garden that don't typically get as much sun and you're just looking to add little bright splashes. So Endless Illumination is a purpley blue color flower, and it blooms throughout the summer. So it's going to give you that just pop of color in those darker areas. They like to be grown in shade to part shade locations. They do attract the hummingbirds, and they're typically deer and rabbit resistant. I do feel like I do have to put a disclaimer here, though. If you have deer and rabbit, and if they are hungry enough, they can eat just about anything. They get about 16 inches tall and about 14 to 16 inches wide, so they create just a nice, beautiful mounding habit. They too are drought tolerant once they're established. Lobelia, there's a lot of great shades of blue in the annual Lobelia family. Laguna Compact Blue with Eye comes to mind. It's a nice compact lobelia, more of a mounding type habit. Just a really rich, true blue, and that white eye just really, it just adds a little bit that makes that flower just really pop. There's also Laguna Dark Blue, Laguna Sky Blue, and Laguna Royal Azuri. So if you're looking to kind of go from like a brighter blue to a paler blue, that's kind of the order that they go in as far as their darkness to the lighterness of the blue color. They're great for in containers as well as in landscape plantings. One thing I will say though is they can be grown in sun to part shade, but especially if you're in warmer areas, probably the part shade would be a more ideal place to plant them. They don't love that hot summer heat. So that's where if you do have them in part shade, it's a little bit more forgiving with the plant and just makes it a little bit more happy. So the lobelia, depending on the variety you're looking at, they fill and they spill in containers and combinations. Also, annual salvia is also a great plant if you're looking to add blue into the garden. You've got the blue suede shoes. That is the most perfect periwinkle blue flower I have ever seen. They're an excellent thriller. They add a lot of height into either your garden or into your planters if you're looking for that nice upright thriller. They are a plant that likes to grow in full sun, and they can handle a little bit of part sun as well. But ours here in Michigan, we love to grow them in full sun, and they explode and do absolutely fantastic. They are drought tolerant once they're established. So if you have an area that tends to be maybe a little bit drier, once they're established, they can handle short periods of dryness, and their gorgeous tubular flowers are just a knockout for those hummingbirds and butterflies. They will be visiting that plant, like if you have them in your area, literally all summer long. Now we're going to take a look at some of the blue flowering perennials, and I feel like this is where, again, you're going to get some really good true blue, and you're going to get some of the bluish purple. But I think it's worth looking at and breaking it down and talking about a few different varieties. So the first one is the Salvia Blue Bayou. Salvia Blue Bayou is a vigorous reblooming salvia perennial, and it's got these gorgeous spikes of flowers, gorgeous flower spikes, and they've got these really nice, deep purpley blue flowers on them. Place a mid-border. They pair beautifully with ornamental grasses, or even if you have some white flowering perennials, like maybe Shasta daisies or something like that, that's a great pairing with that blue and the white. Blue Bayou it loves to be grown in the sun. It also handles some part sun as well, but it does tend to like a little bit more of the sun than shade. So just make sure most of the day is sun if you're planting it. They are also deer and rabbit resistant. They get about 2 foot tall and 2 foot wide, making this nice upright mounding clump. They are drought tolerant once they're established, and most salvia, you're going to notice that they have a little bit of a fragrance to them, which is kind of nice, especially if you're looking to add some fragrance into your garden. This is a very cool spring blooming perennial. It's the Amsonia storm cloud, and I've talked about this one in other videos before. But since we're talking about blue flowering plants, this one fits right into that blue flowering category. When it emerges, it's got really deep, dark, near black stems. And then in the spring, I would say mid to late spring, depending on where you're located, it just bursts with these gorgeous periwinkle blue blooms. Now, these are true periwinkle or true blue colored flowers. They're little star-shaped flowers. They're small, but there's a lot of them. And with all those flower spikes, it's just a mass of color in your spring garden. So if you're looking for something maybe a little different, a little unique, storm cloud is a great perennial. As mentioned, it blooms mid to late spring. It likes to be grown in full sun to part sun locations. It gets about 2 to 3 foot tall and 3 to 4 foot wide when it's mature. So make sure that you're planting in an area of your garden that you're giving it plenty of space to kind of just bulk up and get some size to it. It's hardy in zones 4 to 9 and also is deer resistant. So if deer tend to be a problem in your garden, they should stick away from your Amsonia. Now, if you've watched me for any amount of time, you know I love clematis vines, and there's a lot of great blue blooming clematis as well. one I thought of for this presentation is the Clematis Multi-Blue. And the reason why I like that one is it has a unique flower form to it. It's got 4 to 5 inch blooms, and they're double blooms. So the first bloom cycle is going to be a nice big flower with like frilly double center to it. And then if you get blooms later on in the season, they're going to be more of a singular bloom. But this is a really deep, dark blue, maybe a little bit purple in it. But I would say as far as clematis goes, it's one of the truest, bluest clematises that I've ever seen. So because it blooms on the old growth and the new growth, it's reblooming. So I think that is nice, especially if you can get rebloomers in the garden. You can enjoy the flowers longer. And it likes to be grown in sun to part sun locations. Now, clematis do like to have the roots shaded, and that can be done with mulch, or if you want to plant another plant kind of in front of it, that also will serve it well for protecting its roots. And it's hardy in zones 4 to 9. Another great spring blooming perennial is columbine, also known as acalygia. And if somebody was to ask me what are some of my favorite flowers, this one would make the list. This is the Kurigami Deep Blue and White series. So there's also red and white, and there's a lot of different colors, but we're talking blue today. So blue and white. It's great spring color. Like if you're looking to kind of just have like lots of color in the spring, this plant is going to really offer you lots of color. It has beautiful star-shaped blooms that are both blue and white. And blue and white, they complement each other so nicely. It likes to grow in full sun to part sun locations. It's a great plant for those early pollinators. And this is a little bit bigger of a columbine, getting 22 to 24 inches tall and wide. Rabbit resistant, and this is a native perennial variety that's hardy in zones 4 to 9. So a pretty good spectrum as far as where it can be grown. Now, when I think of blue perennial flowers, though, what comes to mind are definitely the delphinium, also known as larkspur. There's a lot of great, really, truly, true blue flowers when it comes to delphinium. I have 3 or 4 of them that we're going to talk about, and I kind of am talking about them from like the lighter blue color to the deeper, darker blue color. So there's even a spectrum of blues that are going on with these delphinium. So blue lace delphinium, I've had this one in my garden for several years. And somebody had just asked me the other day, are delphinium a short-lived perennial? They can be. I feel like the shorter varieties of delphinium, like the 18 inchers, they tend to be a little bit shorter lived than some of these taller ones, but I do feel like it kind of depends on your area as well. So blue lace is a nice soft blue, and I would call it a true blue. And mine in my garden gets about 5 to 6 foot tall. And the thing I like about it is it sends up spikes throughout the summer, so it just continues to put on more flowers. So these flower spikes of the delphinium, the flowers are just loaded all up and down the stem, and they're just densely packed flowers. So it's really putting on a show when it is blooming. They also make a great cut flower as well with nice long stems. So if you're looking to create an arrangement and have something taller in the center, delphinium would be a great thriller for cut flowers as well. Cobalt Dreams is just that, when you think of like baby blue eyes, where you just want the, gorgeous eye color, that's the Cobalt Dreams, in my opinion. It's the brightest, most stunning blue. It has a nice white eye in it, and that white eye just really makes those flowers pop even more. It's a little bit shorter. It's not a short variety, but it's a little bit shorter, 2 to 3 foot tall and 2 to 3 foot wide. So it still has some decent height to it. It's just not super tall like the others we're going to talk about. And it's hardy in zones 3 to 7 as well. Now, the deepest, darkest blue of the delphinium we carry, this is almost, I don't want to say navy blue, because navy is like very dark, right? But it's just a really rich, deep, dark blue. And that's the blue buccaneers. So it's got deep blue flowers with, instead of a white eye, this has a black eye to it. So that too just deepens that flower color that much more. Hardy again in zones 3 to 7. And this is another tall variety. It can get up to 5 foot tall by about 2 foot wide. So they do have strong stems. They add vertical color to the garden. And as I mentioned, mine repeats and blooms several times throughout the summer. One tip though, I will tell you, especially with my my blue lace, the tall one I do have it growing inside of a tomato cage that helps just give it a little extra support. Another thought would be there's like peony cages where the peonies grow up through the grates on this device, and that helps sturdy them and keep them upright. I do recommend, especially if you're in a windy area, that you do put them in some sort of a support so that they don't flop over. A great shade option for a blue flower comes in the form of the Pulmonaria. Pink of Blue is the name. So it's a great selection for the shade. It's got pink and blue flowers on it. So it depends on the age of the flower, if it's more pink or if it's more blue. So you are usually always getting both pink and blue flowers on that plant at one time. It's a spring bloomer. And even when it's done blooming, it has great speckled foliage. So even when there's not flowers present, that foliage adds a lot of interest into a shade garden as well. It's got kind of a fuzzy texture, and that helps make it deer and rabbit resistant. It gets about 16 to 18 inches tall when it's in flower, and also wide. And it's hardy in zones 3 to 9. So again, a nice plant that's got a very broad spectrum of where it can be grown. Perfect for borders or plant it in mass. It'll add a lot of color into those shady areas of the garden. I've also found a few really great shrubs that are blooming blue. And one thing with adding shrubs into the garden is they're adding height and also structure as well. Now, we did talk about delphinium, and they definitely do add height, but shrubs are going to be kind of the backbones or just the structure in the garden. First one that just right away come to mind is a Caryopteris, or also known as a bluebeard, and that's the Beyond Midnight. We have these planted in our gardens, and they are spectacular. I like them because they bloom when your garden is pretty much done blooming. So it just extends the season color in your garden. They're deep dark foliage, is deep dark green foliage. So that's a nice backdrop too to those really pretty dark colored blue flowers. Now, if you want to brighten things up a little bit, there's also the Caryopteris Sunshine Blue 2, which has more of a chartreuse or yellow foliage. So that pops too in the garden, that foliage. And then it's got a little bit lighter lavender blue flowers than what the Beyond Midnight has. But again, still, I would call it a blue shade of flower. And that Sunshine Blue 2 is just great because you're getting not only flower interest, but you're getting that foliage interest like all summer long until the fall when it does start to flower. They like to be planted in full sun. They are deer resistant. On average, they'll get about 2 to 3 foot tall and 2 to 3 foot wide, hardy in zones 5 to 9, and they bloom off of the new growth. So you can trim them in the spring or in the fall, whenever you like to do your trimming. But they do bloom off the new growth, so you don't have to worry about trimming them and not having them bloom. Butterfly bush, too, come in a lot of great blue shades. The Chrysalis series comes to mind, and there's 2 colors in the Chrysalis series. There's Steel Blue, which is a soft lavender blue, and then there's also the Chrysalis Blue, which is going to be a little bit more of a richer, deeper purpley blue color. I love the Chrysalis series because they are a compact shrub, only about 2 to 3 foot tall, so they don't take up a lot of space. They're also a great shrub you can put in your containers if you want. Make a nice container garden. Typically, when planting a plant in a container, we do recommend going 2 zones colder than what you are. So if you're a zone, let's say zone 7, ideally you'd want your plant to be a zone 5 or colder. Sometimes a 6 will also work, but on the safe side, I usually tell people 2 zones colder if you're going to try to overwinter something in your container. So they're hardy in zones 5 to 9. Butterfly bush are very fragrant bloomers. And of course, as the name implies, the butterflies, the hummingbirds, they love hanging out on a butterfly bush. Now, hydrangeas come in some pretty amazing blue colors as well. How about the hydrangea blue jangles? This one can turn to be one of the richest, brightest blues I've ever seen. Now, the color is going to depend on your soil. So if you have acidic soil, it's going to tend to be a little bit more blue. And if you have alkaline soil, it's going to tend to be a little bit more pink. So your pH of your soil is going to depend the color of what the flower is going to do for you. They like to be grown in full sun to part sun locations. Obviously, if you're in a warmer climate, we would recommend the part sun. For us here in the north, we can get away with full sun, just making sure that we're keeping it watered regularly. You usually water it and it perks right back up within an hour or so. Hardy in zones 5 to 9. It's part of the Let's Dance series. So that means it is a reblooming hydrangea, blooming off of both the old and the new growth. The best time to trim them, honestly, the answer is never, because you're going to be sacrificing either your first blooms or your second blooms. So usually we just recommend letting them go. Now, if they get too big for your spot and you want to trim them in the fall. You're going to lose your first round of blooms, but soon enough, you'll have your new growth that will reward you with more blooms for later on in the summer. It's such a beautiful blue if you can get it to turn blue in your area. Roses Sharon also come in a very nice blue shade. There's a couple of them, but we're going to talk primarily here about the Azuri Blue Satin. It's a beautiful single flower form. I also want to point out it's sterile. So a lot of times with Roses Sharon, people don't like them in their garden because they seed everywhere. But with the Azuri Blue Satin, it's sterile so it doesn't seed. So this is one that you can plant the plant and that'll be the plant you have. You're not going to end up with babies all over the garden. They're large blue flowers, especially large by a Roses Sharon standard. They like to be planted in full sun, and they do attract the hummingbirds and butterflies in the garden. It is a big shrub. It can get 8 to 12 foot tall and about 6 to 8 foot wide. So make sure when you're planting it that you have enough space for it. Hardy in zones 5 to 9. And this too is another shrub that blooms off of the new season growth. So if you do feel like you need to trim it, you can trim it in the fall or in the spring. So there was a lot of great blue or near blue flowering plants, both in the annual, perennial, and shrub world. So a lot of suggestions, no matter where you're looking to plant in your garden. So let's look at blue a little bit more, like the whole design theory behind using blue effectively in the garden. So blue is a receding color. Basically what that means is when you plant blue in the garden, it's making a space feel bigger and just larger. So if you plant it towards the back of your garden bed, what that's going to do is it's going to draw your eye to the back. And that's going to give the illusion of a bigger, larger space or bigger garden. It also, blue has a cooling effect. It's a cool color. Blue tones, they often give you that feeling of calm, especially when you're looking at a color palette. And if you've got a garden that's full of reds and oranges, adding blue also just really helps restore that visual balance of a garden. I mentioned this earlier on in the video that blue and yellow pair well together and they look really pleasing in a garden. Now we're going to also take a quick look here at blue and purple and how that can be confused when people are talking about flowers. A lot of flowers are called blue, but they are definitely shades of purple. And then, like we showed you, there's a lot of great blue flowers that really, truly are blue. But here's something that gardeners don't always realize, and that's that true blue pigment is really quite rare in flowers. Many blooms, they are labeled as blue, but technically they're a shade of violet or purple in their pigment structures. Lighting, your soil conditions, even the time of day can kind of shift the appearance of the blue. So certain times of the day, blue might definitely seem blue, and other times of the day, you're going to see more of those purple tones. So that can play a little role in how much blue you're seeing in your flowers. So when you shop for blue flowers, expect a spectrum of color, basically. It's going to shift from a soft lavender to deep indigo and any shades of purple or blue in between. They all belong to the same cool color family that creates that serene looking landscape. But by combining blue annuals for their seasonal color with blue perennials, which give you that reliability year after year after year of having flowers, and then adding in a little bit of blue with your shrubs to add in some structure, that really creates a very pleasing looking garden. Everything I mentioned today is available on our website, gardencrossings.com. And we're a mail order company. We ship these directly to your door. Or if you're local in Zeeland, Michigan, you can stop into our retail store. We're open mid-April, usually through about mid-October or so. We'd love to have you stop in either online or in our physical store. If you enjoyed this guide today, be sure to like and subscribe to our channel. And tell me in the comments, like, I listed a lot of great blue plants, and I know there's a lot more out there. So if there's a blue flower that you're like, oh, Heidi, the best blue flower in my garden is this, let me know, because I feel like so many of us are just looking for more blue additions to add into our spaces. Thanks for watching. I'm Heidi from Garden Crossings.